Hello!
Hello AOS fans!
It's the Agents of Sigmar.
And in this video we're going to tell you all about Age of Sigmar Spearhead.
I'm not sure how many more times we could have said Sigmar or Agents Age. Yeah.
No, it's like finally when we chose to be Agents of Sigmar all those years ago.
Many moons.
Finally now we might actually play Age of Sigmar. It's a very clever play, you see.
Yeah. So this video is all about Age of Sigmar, the Spearhead version of the way to play, but it's probably worth giving you a little bit of an update of all of the ways to play in Age of Sigmar first.
Games Workshop very kindly sent us one of their new 4th edition Skaven Tide box, and we've been enjoying it and playing with it. But we've only played Spearhead. Pete and I are super casual gamers, and we like, I say we like beer and pretzels games, but we just like quick games that we can play of an evening without getting too bogged down in it and without too much painting and building and all that kind of stuff. And Spearhead is perfect for that. But just to loop in kind of from the Skaven Tide book, there's one thing I noticed in the old version of the rules. They used to talk about the 3 ways to play. And I think they did the same for 40k, and it was open play, matched play, and narrative play. And I don't think anybody really did much else other than matched and a little bit of Path to Glory narrative. And certainly open, nobody bothered. Open was like, just bring what you feel like and play a game. I can't ever see that working. It's just like saying, what are we going to play? Oh yeah, let's just bring your sports equipment down to the field and we'll just play whatever. So you've got one guy stabbed with a javelin because he was trying to play cricket. Yeah, exactly. And it just didn't work, I think. But anyway, but they've made that, they've rationalised that quite a lot now. So there are still 3 ways to play, though it doesn't actually say, because it used to say 3 ways to play, sort of in bold or whatever. But they are now match play, which is kind of just the same, full game. Narrative play has become Path to Glory. So that's like a campaign where you start with a small group of units and then you gradually
play games, and depending on how much you win, you get extra units, and you have to go out and buy those units if you don't own them and paint them and all that kind of stuff.
So that's kind of a way of amassing your collection and then telling a little story on the way, which I quite like. I quite like the idea of that.
It's a nice soft starter, and you can build it up slowly rather than going, oh, I've got to paint 3,000 points before we can do anything. Yeah,
and if you guys out there enjoy our Spearhead content and are enjoying our AOS content, then we might go down the Path to Glory, just for maybe 1 or 2 armies. But a 3rd way is now Spearhead, and that is a almost completely different version of the game, almost, not really, separate from the other 2, that you can play much more easily. It only uses the core rules in the book, so the book has got a whole load of lore, but then it's got core rules and advanced rules. And the core rules, it just uses, Spearhead just uses the core rules, so already you can see that it's simplified.
Yeah, and then they've done a book, which is the Fire and Jade book, which gives you all of the Spearhead armies in there. All the special rules are in there for each of the armies that they currently do a Spearhead box for. So it's all nice and compact. There's no having to go out and buy army books or any of that nonsense. And these are also, they said, going to be online, available to download in PDF format, which is great.
Absolutely, I think it is really good. It just makes the game really nice and easy to access. And we're going to tell you what we've enjoyed about it, maybe what we've enjoyed a little bit less, but why we're going to be playing it and trying to bring games to the channel. I think the main reason can be summed up, but I've already said the words, we're going to say them again. I think this is beer and pretzels AOS. So Pete and I come from a Warhammer Underworlds background, where we've played an awful lot of that over the last 6 or 7 years, and we love that. You can get that done in under an hour. And it's got some tactical choices, and you get to paint little armies. And this is similar. It's a slightly longer play time, but you can play it in an evening.
I think you could comfortably get 1 whole game, possibly 2 games once you get better. If you've got more of an evening available,
if you've got 3 hours, you'll probably get a couple of games in once you know what you're doing. But it took us hardly any time to actually get to know what we're doing, because we're pretty slow. I mean, Kill Team nearly broke us. But we picked this up really quickly, and that's partly to do with how they've written the rules. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Now, unlike 40k's Combat Patrol, which is kind of like a bit of a precursor to this, in that you had the Combat Patrol boxes, they were all self-contained, they were their own special rules and stuff that you could download the PDFs for. That also nearly broke us as well, I think, because there were still too many special rules and stuff going on.
It didn't have its own. This has its own specific rule set, which is slightly modified and has slightly modified stat lines and things. And it's just easier to pick up straight away. The other one is like you're still playing the full game, you're just playing it with a predetermined army.
Yes.
And it didn't feel like it was a proper game. It still felt like you were playing like a cut down version. If you really want to enjoy this, you've got to buy more, but you need more units to enjoy it. Spearhead, because it's only played on a small table, really feels like you're playing a proper, fully thought out game rather than like an afterthought way of introducing somebody to a game.
Exactly, and I think that this just feels more rounded than Combat Patrol does. So I think that's a really important point to bear in mind when you're thinking about what kind of cut-down versions of games you want to play.
If you love the competitive side of AOS, the full match play games, you'll still enjoy this, but you're not going to find it as in depth. It's a shallower game because it's quicker playtime.
Yeah, it's not got quite as much tactical news, but there is still, and we will go into this in a minute, there is still, I think, a tactical depth there that keeps it interesting.
So for me, actually, it's a happy blend of Warhammer Underworlds, AOS, and Warcry.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a few elements of each of them, and I think it's not better than Underworlds, but for me, it's better than Warcry. I'd much rather play this than Warcry.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather play this than Age of Sigmar, because I find Age of Sigmar there's just too much in it for me.
And I think for both of us, we've both wanted to get into AOS for a long time. We've wanted it to be the game that we could play, and this gives you enough of a taste of the game without crushing your will to live in an evening.
It shallowed the learning curve.
Yeah.
It was quite steep, I think, because I always felt like I didn't really understand what was going on, and I wasn't getting the best out of my army, and I was making mistakes. And that isn't a very nice feeling when you're trying to learn a game.
No.
But I didn't have that at all with this. I mean, we did miss things, but you always do. But it never felt insurmountable. Whereas when we played Age of Sigmar 3, it just felt, and 40k, it just felt insurmountable. I can't be bothered. I'm never going to understand
There were just
this.
so many extra special rules that you could remember in AOS, and things that you could do in your opponent's turn, which I like, but there were so many options. You always felt like you weren't doing the optimal thing, and that you were just making mistakes all the time. Whereas in this, there's less options. It just feels more manageable, more surmountable.
Spearhead is perfect for you if you want the Warhammer experience in a single evening,
I like many gamer parents who are incredibly time poor.
or if your hobby budget just won't quite stretch to a full army.
If you don't like list building or crafting armies, which frankly we used to love back in the day, but now who's got time for that?
Who's got time for that? You want your game done in one evening with no prep.
If you want to try lots of different armies out, but you don't want to have to paint a whole army before you can move on to the next one.
You don't want to keep worrying about lots of special rules and synergies.
If you like a flowing and relatively intuitive system.
If you have long lunch breaks, now that's a little bit of a jibe at GW, keep marketing it as you can play this in a lunch break. I think you need to have an hour and a half.
And I'm pretty sure in the book it says about an hour and a half to play.
Right,
so
it does,
they're already sort of suggesting you've got an hour and a half for lunch.
Yeah, which, I mean, maybe you work somewhere there's a royal banquet going on or something, then you could probably get a game in. But yeah,
maybe you work somewhere overnight and nobody's around to see what you're up to.
But yeah, you're gonna. I think maybe if you played it a lot, maybe you get it done in an hour. But I think you need an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. If you didn't interact at all with your opponent, just roll all the dice and quickly go on with it. Maybe an hour.
Even just rolling all the dice, it adds so much time. So a lunch break is pushing it, I think.
Yeah, and the most perfect thing for me though is that you don't end a game of this with an absolute banging headache, which I always used to when I played Age of Sigmar.
A few other things I think mentioning is that there are very few pages you have to reference during your turn. You've got maybe 2 pages of unit rules and another page of command abilities that you can use, and that's mostly it. So you're not flicking back and forth all the time.
Yeah, hence the lack of headaches, really.
Yeah.
I think this will come up in the why it's so good section, but the rules are really well streamlined and they're really easy to reference in a way that I've almost unheard of in GW history.
And one other thing I can think of, that if you like playing on a board that has very well defined edges, that fits on a table and gives you space to get everything else around.
Yeah, that's a really good one actually. I missed that off the list. Yeah, you could just play it on this tiny board. You think, well, how can you play AOS on a tiny board like this? But you can.
I think it's worth pointing out a couple of other things about the game in general that we both really liked that aren't really specifically to do with the rules. We just like the design angle that GW have gone with.
Yeah, we are going to do a separate video which quickly covers how a game works.
Yeah.
But these are the things we've really enjoyed about it. So this isn't only for Spearhead, but the rule book now has all the abilities and everything are colour coded depending on the round that they're used.
Yeah.
It just makes it so much easier when you want to use an ability. Like, well, I want to use this ability. It's the hero phase, so that immediately rules out. You look for your hero phase is yellow, and it immediately rules out all the things on your page that aren't yellow.
Yeah.
And so, like, well,
So
great.
much easier
So I
to
can use
work
this
out.
one and this one. Oh, I can't use that one at the moment. So I only need to use that one. It's just really easy to see.
When you pick up your Spearhead, the heroes and the units within it have very few options. You get a few customizable things right at the start, something you can give your hero, your leader of the whole army, something that your whole army can use as a little ability, and usually one other little sort of thing for taste of some kind that fits the theme of it, but that's it. So there's very little army building, which we did mention earlier.
And because they're all colour coded, it's really easy to see when you can use those few abilities. The game has a reinforcements rule whereby when certain units are destroyed, they can come back.
Yeah.
And that's really helpful because it means if things are going badly, you will get some reinforcements, and it can actually be tactically advantageous because might be able to pop them up somewhere more useful on the board.
The game has a set of twists, one of which gets randomly picked at the beginning of each round, and if you happen to be losing, then sometimes that gives you a bit of a bonus there, and it just gives the whole game a little bit of a different taster in each round, so that every turn isn't exactly the same as the last, and there's something that you maybe weren't expecting.
Yeah, and the underdog mechanic is particularly good because it just keeps it balanced, and the couple of games we played have been really close, even though one of us stretched out ahead quite a long way, and then the underdog mechanic allowed them to pick it back up.
Yeah.
So it's really quite clever. I always feel like we ought to do the problems first because it feels like you leave the positive stuff and then you go, oh, but these things are less good. But here are the problems that we have come up with.
It's worth pointing out that I think we were scraping the barrel when we were trying to find problems. None of these, I think, are really big problems. They were just, it'd be nice to have.
Which is unlike us, because normally we have to struggle to find things we've enjoyed about some games. But I've really enjoyed, but there are a few issues, and I don't even think they're issues necessarily, but they're just things that would have made it a bit easier. If you were brand new to gaming, and this is obviously for people who are brand new to gaming, there's a few things that I think just would have helped a little bit. Like there's no counters in the box.
No.
So you do have to mark who holds an objective, and there's no way of marking that, and you do need to
use some post-it notes and stick them on the board, but it would have been nice to have some double-sided tokens.
And there's no easy way to track points scored and things. I mean, you can write down or whatever, or use a dice, but it just, we've got a couple of dials that we've been using, which is a good way to do it. But I know GW don't really go in for dials, that's more of a Fantasy Flight Games thing, but some dials in the box would have been quite nice. In the Skaven Tide box, you do get 2 sets of core rules. Unfortunately, they're in both the rulebooks. I don't know where the other rulebook's gone, but they're in both the rulebooks, which is, it's not a problem, but a little thin section of core rules I just think would have been helpful. Just you could pass it between each other.
In one of the versions of 40k, they did like a little A5 softback version. Yeah. That would be perfect because then you can. It's just easier to get to. On
my second game, I have realised that I was using the Fire and Jade book, and I have realised that you've got a ribbon, so you can put the ribbon where you want them. But you were managing the core rules, I was managing the abilities and the battle plan rules for the thing. But I just think separate core rules would be really great. I think they normally make them available, the core rules, for download. So probably maybe they'll be for download, then I would probably recommend printing them out.
And it might have been nice, as they did in previous versions of AOS, to give us little separate cards for at least the Spearhead units that are in the box, or really for the whole armies that are in the box, because you're going to need them sooner or later.
I suppose one of my main fears of this format is that could get boring if you've just bought the Skaven Tide box and you've just got these 2 armies and you play them. How long will it remain interesting for? We play Underworlds every week. Now, admittedly, we've been playing for a very long time. We've got a whole huge range of options to play, but I can't see myself playing this every week.
Not with the same 2 armies.
No.
So yeah, that is a possibility, but I think that's a possibility with any of the GW big games.
I think probably with any game in history.
Yeah, probably.
Although we do play Underworlds.
With the exception of maybe chess.
But even then I think I'd get bored. Yeah. But yes, I think that would be my only fears. But maybe when you've got 4 and between the 2 of you, we can mix it up a little bit. Maybe
depends how much you're sharing, but if you could swap and stuff, I could see that being more interesting.
Yeah.
If you do decide to move on from Spearhead to the main game, the fact that some of the stats and the army rules change may trip you up at a later point.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you'll get to know one set of rules and then it'll be different. And that probably isn't a problem because you've got to make that step up at some point. But it just feels like, we really are reaching there, I think, actually, that one. But I just occasionally think, it would be nice if they, and I can understand why they haven't because they need to balance it, but it would be nice if they were just the rules from the thing. But then maybe if we'd done that, it would have felt more like Combat Patrol, which I don't like. Maybe I'm just trying to have my cake and eat it. And
there's always the risk that some of the Spearhead armies might just be better than others, or some Spearhead armies might just be worse, and then if you pick a duff Spearhead army to play with, you just always get pasted. But I'm hoping that GW are being much more reactive with these kind of things, and as they're all going to be available in PDF format, it might make this go a bit out of date, but they will be able to release updates and say, actually, this unit's ability's changed, or that army's different now.
Yeah.
And they can tweak it that way.
Made it a bit of tinkering because you don't want to discover that you've just invested in Eyes of the Nine. Underworld's joke for you there. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, these armies have obviously played. I think it feels like they've been play tested. They're really quite balanced, and it's quite funny sometimes to think, I'm absolutely smashing you, and other times I thought, you're absolutely smashing me. But actually, the games have been pretty close.
It's what's called variance in the dice. Ooh. So there's a very long-winded, rambling summary of why we think Spearhead's great and why we think that people should be playing it.
Yeah, I don't think I've been this excited about a big box release
ever.
Yeah, nothing else to add. It's not as good as Underworlds, but I would say it's as good as everything else that's coming in a big box. In fact, it's better than everything else that's coming in a big box. And I haven't been this excited about playing Warhammer tabletop for about 30 years.
Yeah. So if you're looking to get into AOS but you're not sure what you want to go for, we would very strongly recommend Spearhead, and we are going to be doing some more Spearhead content, so do let us know in the comments below what you'd like to see us talk about or record next.
Yeah, we've got all of these lovely models to paint up. So many to paint. Well, not that many really, but yes, this still feels like quite a lot. But yes, we've still got these to paint up, and then you have got Nurgle.
I've got some
and I've got some Cities of Sigmar, so we're going to be mixing and matching those.
Yep.
And then maybe if you guys are enjoying it, we'll carry on and add to our Spearhead collections.
Yeah, maybe we'll even do some stuff live so people can watch along.
Yes.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you can tell when we are going to be live or when we release a new video.
Yeah, and we'll see you soon
In the Age of Sigmar.